And I tell them the story of how I worked with a white farmer back in 1986. I was not working for the Department of Agriculture. I was working with a nonprofit organization assisting farmers throughout South Georgia and the Southeast. And this farmer came to me for help. I was telling the story about how working with him helps me to see that the issue is not about race. It's about those who have versus those who do not have.
John, what's your take?
Well, we had her on this morning. I mean, when you take a look at that video clip, it looks like, oh my goodness, this is something she did while she was in a position of authority at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. But by talking with her this morning, she says this was 24 years ago. This was a learning experience for her. She had in the job that she was in with this nonprofit cooperative organization dealing with farmers in southeastern Georgia, sort of had a preconceived notion of what it was all about, that it was about white and black. And she said, no, I learned from that it was not about race. It was about the haves versus the have-nots. And she has not only told this speech before this organization back on March the 27th, but more than 6 months earlier than that, on the 15th of October, she gave what she told us this morning was exactly the same speech at Albany State University. It was played over and over again on local television in Albany, and nobody came out and said anything about this. But this was put up on a website, this latest one from March the 27th, and is well covered extensively by news organizations. That's when it came to the attention of the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the NAACP. When you take a look at Ben Jealous' statement, it looks as though he perceived that this was something she did while she was at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which other people have told us this morning, yes, indeed, would be wrong. But is it wrong if she is telling a story that happened 26 years ago, saying, this is something that changed my perspective on the whole issue? That's what's being debated now.
All right, so Roland, is this is this action taken by the right-wingers to just pick whatever sound bites from this speech and put it out of context and put it on YouTube without seeing the whole thing?
Well, first of all, I want to address the right-wingers' perspective second. I believe that the statement by the NAACP was a correct statement because you're speaking to the issue of being in power and you actually making a determination based upon race. I talked to John Boyd with the National Black Farmers Association. He also supports their decision, even though, as she said, this took place prior to her coming to the USDA. What it shows you is when you're in a position of power. Here's what we also know. There are individuals who are still working for the Department of Agriculture who have cost the American taxpayers $1 billion+, and these folks have not been fired, and they actually denied opportunities against black farmers, Hispanics, and women based upon race and gender. So I would hope these same right-wing conservatives would also target those individuals as well. And so, look, she has to understand that her position was going to be, frankly, difficult. Because the question then would have came into, well, what other folks did you deny opportunities with? What else happened? In a politically charged environment, like it or not, this is what's going to happen. And I think also, I get telling the story.
She's just telling the story of redemption. She feels she was just telling the story of redemption, that more than 20 years ago, that she.
But as a political appointee, Kyra, as a political appointee, one has to recognize in these times today, when folks do play gotcha, when you do have videotape, how things can be used against you. And you also, and so I would question, frankly, even telling that particular story publicly, knowing full well how it could be used against you, used against your superiors, used against the president or whomever. That's the environment that we are now living in.
Well, we've definitely,
whether we like it or not.
Roland, we've all been victim of that. How many times have we given speeches or we've given interviews and we see everybody with different intentions take snippets of what it's happened to all three of us, matter of fact.
Sure.
And it's pretty heart-wrenching.
Well, the motives are clear.
But John, go ahead, John.
The point can be made here. I mean, Robert Byrd's affiliation with the Ku Klux Klan. Obviously, that stayed with him throughout all his life. It was recently mentioned when he passed away, but people allowed him to take a different point of view after he came to that different point of view. And it just puts out the question. I'm not defending this woman. I'm just saying that she came to a different point of view, and she's talking about that now. And is that a fireable offense?
Roland?
Well, again, though, you begin to speak to the issue in terms of what will be the perception Will it be a political firestorm? And will the controversy get in the way of you actually doing your job? We've seen
and do
this
we know
on
that,
multiple occasions.
Roland? That's a great point. We don't know. At least at this point, I don't know. Do you know, John? Do you know if she has acted, carried out? Go ahead.
We don't have her record, but from talking with her this morning, we do not have her record. But from talking to her this morning, she said that episode in her life, during which she worked very closely with this farmer and became friends with both him and his wife, it taught her how to do her job better. So it would appear on the surface, and again, not defending her, just telling you what she said, that this was a learning experience. She was in her job at a nonprofit with a different perspective than she has now, and this helped her to see the light.
And Roland, we need to hear from the USDA. I know that John has reached out to the USDA. We've reached out to the USDA, you know, because now that we're getting more context regarding this speech, and she has spoken to us live on CNN. We need to hear from the USDA and say, well, did she explain this to you, and why did you accept her resignation?
Sure. And Kyra, look, and we also have to recognize that when you're operating in a political firestorm, when you're operating in a situation where just last week the NAACP went after Tea Party folks for racist elements, clearly that was the motive of Andrew Breitbart and big government and the folks at Fox News and other places in terms of what's the motive here, in terms of what's the context, what are you exposing. But from a political standpoint, whether we like it or not, you make these kinds of decisions where somebody may resign, get forced out, because it could impede your actual work moving forward. If it continues and the drum beats get louder and louder, you cut it off at the pass.
Yeah,
we may not like it, but that's the reality in 2010.
And once it's on the internet, it never goes away. Roland Martin,
absolutely.
Final thought, John.
It would be nice to see the entire tape in its context so that we could all take a look at it and say, oh, this is what she said, and you can either continue to hold the same opinion or you can change your opinion based on what she said.
Well,
I would like to know, too.
Let's ask for the entire tape. Let's ask the USDA for the entire tape.
And I would like to know, too, if the NAACP had the benefit of having this in context before it came forward with its statement.
I say...
I talked to Ben. I actually talked to Ben Jealous in terms of it. Did not have her comments on that. But again, you're also looking at a situation of a national organization that has fought racism. And on the surface, when you hear comments, what is your reaction going to be?
But did they see the whole tape? Roland, did Ben Jealous say they saw the whole entire speech?
Well, first of all, no one has seen the whole tape.
Okay.
I mean, no one has seen the. Remember, this wasn't a national organization. This was a local chapter, not a national convention.
It would be good to see the whole tape.
Yeah, and I'm wondering for those that released the sound bites if they saw the whole tape too. All right, guys, I'm getting the big fat wrap. We'll continue.
It's always great to see the whole tape. Context.
Absolutely, and we'll stay on it. That's for sure. Roland, let us know if you hear more. John, you too. Thanks, guys.